Welcome to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. And now your host, Tim Johnson.
A critical success factor for business and industry in any state is the quality of that state's public education system. We'll visit with Louisiana State Superintendent of Education John White when we return on this edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Consumers and property owners with construction projects can have a successful result or regretful experiences that could have been avoided. Before any construction project, verify licensure of the contractor and check references. Scammers will claim to be insured or bonded, so always check first. Download our app, LA Contractor, from the Android or Apple Store. Visit our website, lacontractor.org, or contact the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. We're here to help before things go wrong. Hire a licensed contractor. It's the law.
Spadel's Florist was founded over 30 years ago. From my mom's kitchen, we have grown into one of the largest florists in this area. There's a sense in our community that you stick together. Good times or bad. And oil and gas is part of that family. They're my neighbors. They're my customers. They're the person I'm sitting next to at church. If oil and gas is doing well, all of our businesses are doing well. We are Louisiana Oil and Gas.
The Work Ready You program changed my life. There's opportunities for everything. You could be a welder, you could be a nurse. You can take any trade you want, and it's free. I dreamed of it as a kid, be successful, making a life for myself and making me a family. I always dreamed of it, but I never thought that I would be there, and dreams come true.
For your free high school equivalency training, text diploma to 55,000 or give us a call.
Passion, experience, safety. These are what set Arkell Constructors apart as a premier general contractor. At Arkell Constructors, our goal is to exceed our clients' expectations, whether it's commercial, industrial, or facility maintenance. We have the team and processes in place to provide a solution for you. To us, every project is a resume for our future. Arkell Constructors, the solution for your next building project.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Pleased to welcome for his annual update on the state of public education in Louisiana, State Superintendent of Education John White. Buddy, welcome.
Thanks, Tim. Great to be here.
You've been on the job now since 2012. High pressure situation. You've served two different governors, different BESI members, a variety of legislators. What keeps you motivated?
Well, I think there's two things. I mean, first, if you're working with 800,000 kids and their parents and 50,000 teachers every day, if that's not enough to motivate you, you've got a problem. But also, I know that education, if it's not the entire solution, it's certainly fundamental to the solution. And we can have a better state. I think our state is growing. I think our state is getting to a place where we can say we've got a better educated state than we've had in the past. But we've got a long, long way to go. And that goal of a place where any family can say, my child goes to a good school, my child has a prosperous future right here in Louisiana, that keeps me motivated too.
Give us the big picture. We've made significant improvement over the time that you've been in the position. I mean, I know that you would give credit to those who came before you as well that set us on a good path, but we've seen some things get better, and we've seen them objectively get better in the things that most states measure. So talk about where we are in terms of public education in Louisiana and how we compare to states around us.
Yeah. Well, things have gotten better. I mean, objectively, we have a much better educated Louisiana than we did 8 years ago. We have more kids graduating from high school this year than in any year in the state's history. We have more kids getting advanced placement credits. We have a higher number of kids getting a college-going ACT score. Just look at TOPS. The standards for TOPS haven't changed. When I started, 45% of graduates were getting TOPS. This year, 60% of graduates got TOPS. So that's real improvement, and it's real opportunity in the lives of young people in Louisiana. But at the same time, let's not be for a second resting on any laurels, because in answer to your second question, how do we stack up against other states? We still have serious educational struggles. And it's not limited to education. It's true in health. It's true in our economic outcomes. It's deeply rooted in our history and challenges that are no one individual's fault, but they're there. Especially for low-income Louisianans, the challenge is there. We struggle in a number of ways. We struggle with basic reading still. We struggle to access to early childhood care and education still. And these are issues that affect millions of lives. And so we have to keep pressing forward, even as we can say job well done on some fronts.
I know that you believe that even given some of these long-term historical issues that have plagued us in Louisiana, not the least of which is poverty, which seems to have taken root here and is difficult to shake, that even given those things, you still believe in high standards and that every child not only should have the opportunity to learn, but can learn at a high level. To talk a little bit about that in terms of the standards that you try to set and that Bessie is trying to set and holding individual students and teachers and schools accountable. How much progress are we making there?
I think you have to start with the end in mind. What, as an education system, are we trying to produce? And I think we're trying to produce three fundamental things. First, a well-informed citizen. Second, a good, productive employee, worker, and leader in our workforce. And second, a good person, a good family member, and a good person to his or her fellow citizens. And in that, to do that, you have to assure that you've got a plan for every single student. And it helps to, along the way, from kindergarten through to 12th grade through to college, to have standards that say, by this grade level, we expect you to be here. If we don't have standards, then we run the risk of saying, well, for this kid, we're willing for him to be over here, but for that kid, we want her to be over there. And that's not the way that we should operate in the 21st century. So we have made tremendous progress with setting a basic expectation that there are standards and that those standards can lead to a good next step after high school for every student. We're not there yet. We're not to a point where every student coming out of our high schools has a good next step into a good job or to a college that's viable. But we are a heck of a lot further than we were before.
Talk about some of the things, John, that you do to move us toward a place where, you know, every child will be in a position where they are capable of entering a good college or are capable of entering the economy and holding down a good job and being prepared to do that. We talk about those things, but there are a lot of things that take place at the school level that help improve those situations. Talk about some of those details.
Well, no one has worked harder at this than teachers, and I put it in 5 categories. First, our teachers have started at the early childhood level. They've taken child care and Head Start, and they've made it a professional environment, just like our pre-kindergartens. Secondly, our teachers are implementing the top curriculum in the country, curriculum that researchers have validated across the country. Third, they're getting trained in the classroom. People aren't coming into Louisiana just teaching cold with no prior experience. Our college seniors are spending a full year like doctors and nurses as residents in the classroom environment. But fourth, at some point, students need to actually make a choice. You know, what are they going to do after high school? And for too long, we've said, well, everybody's going to go get a bachelor's degree. That's going to be the only way we go. And you and I have worked on this a lot together. We've talked about this a lot. We also have a path to say the military is a good option. Getting a job in one of our refineries is a good option. Getting a job in one of our hospitals is a good option. There are good jobs and good options that don't sacrifice college. Everybody can go to college, but it may look a little different. It may look like becoming a welder, becoming a coder and a programmer, as much as it might look like becoming a philosopher. And all of those options should be available to the kids in our state.
What is clear, right, and you just mentioned it, is that whatever we do, participating successfully and continuing to learn as you go through your life in the economy means that training post-high school at some level, whether it, you know, we call it the university or it's college or it's some industry-based certification program, are all critically important. We're going to take a break. We come back, I want to talk about investment in education because I believe that in a lot of ways we have starved priorities in Louisiana. I want to get your opinion on that. I want to get your thoughts on that as we think about investing in those things that should be most important in terms of what state government does. We're visiting with John White. He's the Louisiana State Superintendent of Education. You're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Since 1919, we've designed and constructed hundreds of industrial plants, roads, ships, dams, and executed some of the most complex jobs in the world. In fact, our quality and dependability are legendary. Today, the legend continues as Brown & Root delivers engineering, construction, maintenance, and industrial specialty services throughout the U.S. and the world from our headquarters here in Louisiana. We are Brown & Root.
ExxonMobil Baton Rouge keeps the local economy rolling. Our new aviation project created hundreds of jobs, drove millions of dollars to local businesses, and poured thousands more into our community to improve schools. 1 in 8 jobs in our parish can be traced back to ExxonMobil. Tomorrow's Baton Rouge is built by what we do today. A little energy goes a long way. ExxonMobil Baton Rouge. Energy lives here.
The 1012 Industry Report is excited to announce the 1012 Industry Weekly. This e-newsletter is free and comes to your inbox every Tuesday. All you have to do is sign up at 1012industryreport.com. 1012 Industry Report is an award-winning magazine serving South Louisiana's petrochemical and oil and gas industries. From Lake Charles to Baton Rouge and New Orleans, we cover the news, people, projects, and issues that matter to industry. The 1012 Industry Report magazine and weekly email. Sign up today.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. State Superintendent of Education John White is our guest. John, we said as we ended the last segment, we talked a little bit about our state's investment in education. And I don't choose to speak of it in terms of how much we spend on education. I think it should be referred to as how much we invest in our children. Now, lifelong Republican, generally conservative. I know that in any state government effort, there's always efficiency to be had, right? That we can always do a little bit more. But I'm concerned that we have become so anti-government in our state, and in fact in our country, and so anti-tax in our country and our state, that it's easy to say we're wasting money and we've got enough. I don't know what the truth is from that circumstance. So talk about our overall investment in education and how that stacks up to the states that we might compete with.
Yeah, well, one thing to note is we don't have one education system, and we have what I think of as 4 education systems. We have a K through 12 system that I work with. We also have an early education system, birth to 5, that I work with. We have a college and university system. And then we have a lifelong education system, an adult education system. And I think you have to think about these things in today's world as part of one continuum. You can't just segment one off and say, well, that's the education system. All of that is about education because the need for education is a lifelong need.
Absolutely.
And I think in that respect, you have to say there's inconsistent levels of investment across that system. I'll just tell you, within my own system, the K through 12 system, yes, it can always use more resources. And by the way, the governor has done a very good thing by putting out in front, we've got to get our teachers a baseline minimum raise this year. I think the legislature is going to take it up. Bessie has already approved it, and that's great news. So to his credit, to Bessie's credit, that's a smart investment. On the other hand, the early childhood system got no additional investment in the version of the budget that's been put forward so far. And that's a huge mistake. We've cut early childhood dramatically over the last 10 years under the previous governor. We haven't increased it during this administration. That means we've got working families. I've got a list of them in my office, more than 3,000 of them, who are sitting on a wait list, waiting to find a place where they can affordably send their child to a good quality care and education. Why? We haven't invested. And there just does come a time when you can't just wish for a solution. You actually do have to step up and make an investment.
And the statistics, the research is clear. These pre-K, these early childhood programs have a significant impact on whether or not a young person, a child, will be successful.
Absolutely. And look, it's a double bonus because you, A, get the child a place where they can develop, where they can learn social skills, they can begin to develop skills like recognizing numbers and letters, but also mom and dad can go to work and focus on their jobs, focus on bringing bread home to their families, knowing that their care is being their child is being professionally cared for and educated. And that is an irreplaceable thing. If you've ever searched for childcare, you know what that's like. Imagine doing it, working 50 or 60 hours a week and being poor. And so this is a service we have to step up and provide. And yet there's some attention, good attention, being paid to our higher education system and our adult education system as well. But I think you have to ask, are we investing in smart ways? Yes, I think the teacher raise is a smart thing. Are we investing in smart ways? No, not right now in early childhood. We have to make a change.
You know, what's interesting to me is, and you and I have had this conversation before as well, I was a young, just out of college, staffer in the state Senate, and I can remember the debates that took place back then, and I'm talking about now in mid to late 80s, where the legislators would sit around and say, if we could just pass this bill and we fund it, over the next 3 years, we could get teacher pay to the southern average in the United States, teacher pay in Louisiana to the southern average. And I can remember as a young 20, 21, 22-year-old guy sitting there thinking, is that really our goal in Louisiana, to be average in the South? Why isn't our goal top 5 in America in everything we do? Why isn't our goal top 5 in America in student performance, in teacher pay, in accountability, in all these things? And I understand that coming from where we're coming from, that's a lofty goal, not necessarily unrealistic, but setting the bar high. But I believe we've got to lift our expectations in this state, John, that we've got to demand more and expect more. I know you agree with that.
Well, I don't think we have a choice. I mean, first, it is crazy that we want to be the best football program. We want to have the best baseball program. This year we had a top competing basketball program on a national stage in the NCAA tournament, in the BCS, in the College World Series. But we don't talk about ourselves academically that way.
And no one has a problem with spending more money on LSU football. And there's not a bigger LSU football fan alive than I am. But we don't treat them the same way. Why not invest and be excited about in the same way K-12 education in our state?
I think we know it's a long haul to get to a point of real competition and of real equity, of being competitive. Look, we're a long way from Massachusetts and Connecticut and some of the wealthier states, some of the states that don't have the same histories that we do. But in acknowledging that history, you also have to say our kids have a right. Our families have a right to an excellent education, not just a decent education, an excellent education. And there are things, investments we can make, policies we can put in place, practices we can set forth to assure them that they do. And we need to start talking about our state with that aspiration, not just on the gridiron, but in the classroom.
Well, we got about a little over a minute left, and so we'll start this and maybe we'll carry it over. But talk about we're going to talk about Jumpstart 2.0 a little bit later. But talk about some of the other initiatives that you guys are looking at, maybe trying to put in place that might help move the needle.
Yeah. Well, there's endless amounts of challenges to address. And just to name a couple, first, I am concerned about our early reading. I'm concerned that after years of trying to find ways to get our kids to be reading by the time they're in 3rd grade, we're still falling short. And I think part of that is about teacher training methods. And we've got to get direct to every teacher of our early grades an understanding as to how to teach the fundamentals of how to read. Part of it is, how do we prepare teachers before they ever set foot in the classroom? And while today our colleges of education are doing a fantastic job providing a year-long residency for every aspiring undergraduate teacher, what about those teachers who come in from a different profession mid-year? What kind of training are they getting? We've got to get to a point where we have a residency of sorts for those educators as well. There are endless amounts of challenges we can take on in our system. The important thing is, year over year, set a vision, solve problems. You tackle one, you take on another, and you will make progress like we talked about at the top of the show.
Consistency and persistence, right? We're visiting with State Superintendent of Education John White, and you're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
I just see the positive things on the horizon, and BRAC is a real integral part of that.
BRAC's taken a very forward role in trying to help align people and align strategies and align solutions.
You'll find that you'll have an opportunity at BRAC to make a difference.
It's about being a part of conversations and really having a voice in terms of how we move the city forward.
A lot of my friends were in college and stuff, which is great. It wasn't the route for me, and financially, I know it's tough on a lot of people, so I saw welding. At first, my instinct was like, what pays the most money? So I was like, welding, that's the way to go. It made a great living for me and my family. You can always work your way up. There's multiple ladders, and really the sky's the limit. I thought I got to the max with as high as I can go with welding. As high as you want to grow, you can absolutely achieve it.
promoting workplace safety and family wellness. That's our motto at Gulf Coast Occupational Medicine. The Gulf Coast staff is made up of some of the most knowledgeable and hardest working medical professionals in Louisiana. We care about your safety and your bottom line. With 8 convenient locations in the greater Baton Rouge area, our services include injury management, physical exams, medical surveillance, and substance abuse testing. For more information, visit us on the web at gcombr.info and ride the wave to safety.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. State Superintendent of Education John White is our guest. A few years ago, you guys reinvented career and technical education in Louisiana. You mentioned it in the first segment, that there are such a large percentage of the careers that exist in Louisiana's economy that require something less than a 4-year college degree. Yet we had spent most of our time trying to push all of our students in public education in Louisiana for a long, long time toward the 4-year institutions. Jumpstart changed that. It reinvented how didn't necessarily bring back the old VOTEC. It really reinvented career and technical education. So give us a little history, John, of what Jumpstart was and is, and then let's talk about where it's going.
Yeah. Well, you're right, Tim. I mean, for years, I would say there was an active stigma perpetrated against the career and technical education system. And there were some good reasons for that. I mean, you alluded to the old VOTEC systems. It's true. A lot of kids with disabilities, low-income kids, kids of color, found themselves kind of pawned off to a lesser-than system. Right? Absolutely. Yeah. And so there's an totally understandable desire to say, I don't want that. You know, I want purple and gold, I want tops, all this and that. But the fact of it is, if you look at the full range of paths to a prosperous life here in Louisiana, they require different types of education. Some of them on a 4-year campus, some of them on a 2-year campus, some of them in training programs, and we need to start that in high school. And that's all Jumpstart did. It said, let's get kids into the IT firms, into the hospitals, into the construction firms and the contractors, and let's get them educated there so they get the credentials to work, upwardly mobile life, and to be prosperous right here at home in our state.
And you guys have done a really nice job with that, and it is preparing those individuals to successfully participate in the economy upon leaving high school. I want to pull 2 things from that. The first is this. That whole idea of the pathway, right, is that it used to be, as we talked about, you graduate from the 4-year institution and you go, from the high school and you go immediately into a 4-year university. That was the only path we discussed. And if you didn't make it there, then we kind of patted you on the behind and said, good luck to you, hope that you find something out there. Today, we recognize clearly that there are multiple pathways. That going into an industry-based certification program through Jumpstart doesn't mean that at some point you might not enter the 4-year university and get that degree. I say this all the time. What better way to prepare yourself to be an electrical engineer one day than to spend 4 or 5 years as a practicing electrician in the field? Not only do you learn a lot about it and it helps you, but you also save a little bit of money, so you might not have to borrow as much to go to college. We are recognizing those pathways clearly now.
Yeah, no question. And then I think there is a second question to that, which is if you've taken the pathway, did you get the job? And I still think there we've got a gap. I still think there we've got too many kids coming out with industry-based credentials that aren't translating into jobs. And so, as you said at the top of the show, we issued a kind of blueprint for something called not Jumpstart, but Jumpstart 2.0. And as part of that, we want to go back and look at the last 5 or 6 years and say, okay, we've done all this. We've gone from 15,000 industry-based credentials each year to 60,000.
15 to 60.
Right. We've gone from 1% of our kids graduating with an industry credential to 25% of kids graduating with an industry-based credential. So we've made that change. Has it resulted in jobs? And I'd say yes, but not enough. We've still got too many kids who, when they walk across the dais, get that diploma, and then frankly, a lot of us don't quite know where they're headed. They're not headed to the military. They're not going to Southern or LSU. And what are they doing? They're working low-wage, irregular jobs. They're sitting at home playing video games. They're walking the streets. Whatever it is, we don't have a completely firm path to a good job for every high school graduate, and that's what we need to build.
And how are we going to address that? I know that in the original Jumpstart, you had great response from the business community, and in each region of the state, you looked at those careers that were most in demand, and you built those Jumpstart programs around those in-demand careers. How do we take it now to the next level?
I think there's two things. First, we've still got too many kids who are being given industry-based credentials that really aren't that challenging and that no employer would look at and say, you know what, I'm going to hire you based on that credential. And my view is, anything in the system that an employer would look at and say, that's not good enough for me, we shouldn't be teaching our kids. Secondly, we've got to bridge our high schools, our community colleges, and our employers. Our community colleges are an essential piece of this. And you know, the federal government looks at the community colleges and the high schools through a piece of legislation called the Carl Perkins Act and says, you guys work together with industry and you combine to make a plan to get kids there. That means high schools and community colleges need to do short credentialing programs that stack one on top of the next. So when I'm 18, I'm a welder's helper, on up to a point where I've got a viable path through that career, through the community college. I got my associate's degree, I'm a master welder, and I'm making a good living for my kids.
So part of the answer is ensuring rigor, right? I mean, it's looking at these careers that are in demand and making sure that in those programs that are available in the high schools, there is the appropriate amount of rigor in those programs to ensure that those individuals who get those credentials through that program are prepared to go to work. A lot of that has to do with the quality of the instructor in that program as well. And you rely heavily on industry to help you there as well.
Oh, you have to. I mean, you have to. We have to want retirees. We have to want current employees. We have to want teachers who have spent some time in industry. I mean, there has to be a much tighter intermingling between employers, community colleges, and high schools. And that is about people. It's about a constant exchange of making plans that are customized to the job, and a big part of that is having a teacher who's actually done the job.
Well, pay attention to that, John, as it goes along, because I know how critically important it has been and will be to the business community. We've got about 40 seconds left here. Your message to Louisiana in terms of public education in general?
Well, I think we've demonstrated that while change may be incremental, it may be gradual, it can be consistent and it can be sustained. And when you do that in our business, you get good things for our state, and more important, you get good things for our children and their families. You can create life opportunity. You can create a more educated citizenry. You have to do it through high expectations, through holding the line, and through extremely hard work. Our teachers, our families, and our kids, millions of them, deserve the utmost credit for making a better Louisiana.
Listen, man, I have been since the day you got the job a big fan of John White. I appreciate the work that you do on behalf of the children of this state. Keep it going. I appreciate your motivation and your passion around what you do, and it's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, as always.
That's a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week at this very same time for another edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.